This is not a reenactment. This is a real battle, full contact, medieval combat.
Injuries happen, and I want to say they're not common, but they are. We're not playing to lillywinks. It's quite a serious game.
Not many nerds get to bash people with steel. Not many jocks do either, actually.
No strikes down the spine.
It's a sanctioned sport by an international federation.
Fight!
And they fight until only one person is left standing.
You right there? Yep.
Weekdays, these people live an entirely modern life. But on the weekends, they make the ultimate escape, right back to the 15th century.
It's real. It's about as real as it can get without killing people.
Fight!
Nerds with swords. They prefer athletic history enthusiasts. 30-year-old Justin Stockbridge is the mastermind behind this team of 7, a team they've named the Steel Thornes.
How did you get into the sport?
I was a little kid, and as little kids go, I want to be a knight when I grow up. So surely enough, I turned myself into a knight. I found myself a group that did sword fighting. That was when I was 16.
A little bit more in the middle, because then you've got those butt strikes if you need.
And then there's Justin's wife, Sophie.
She just dominates people. Yeah, she's a very scary individual.
Sophie is the prize jewel of the Steel Thornes. This year, fighters from 33 countries competed in Malbork, Poland. Sophie became the first New Zealander to win gold, taking the world title in poleaxe. It all started here, in an industrial complex in Bellblock, New Plymouth. Behind a dairy distribution warehouse, Sophie and Justin have built the armour, plotted and trained to win world championships in medieval combat. The two met at a medieval club in Wellington. Sophie was just 19, Justin 23.
We were doing a display, and I was a wench, because I got talked into it, and Justin was the knight. We had a wench fight, and then he ended up almost stabbing my eye out with his pig-faced bassinet. Got me in the eye.
That's one way to get a woman's attention, poke her in the eye.
It worked for me.
Yeah.
Sophie soon proposed, and they had a medieval-themed wedding. She wore a traditional dress.
Justin, however, did end up in a suit of armour, which he finished making at 6 a.m. on the wedding day. We did like a big medieval feast as well, and we had 80 litres of mead, and it's about 40% proof. Did the trick. Not many people remember the wedding now.
Justin left school at 14 to become a baker, but soon found his calling creating something entirely different, armoury.
And I thought, I'm never going to be able to afford really cool stuff. So I thought, I'll just make it.
It isn't a cheap sport. Sophie helps to pay the bills by working nights at the chicken factory. This is marriage for the Stockbridges.
We have fights over like who will do the dishes, and we actually do fight with armour and swords over who will do the dishes.
And Justin has a very good time of telling me, you need to hit here, you need to hit here. So I tell him to shut up a lot, because it's tense, it's tense. Shut up, Justin!
In May, she travelled to Poland to compete in the World Championships as part of the New Zealand team. After 2 days of travel and sleeping in the moat of an historic castle, they emerged for battle. Dairy farmer Dave Briscoe was also in the New Zealand team.
All the teams that we could and all the individuals we could, we got video footage off the internet so we could go through and look at the way they fought to work out how we could fight against them.
Teammate Alex Kirkley was watching the live stream back home as Sophie annihilated everyone in her path.
She's quite stout and she's got a lot of muscle. She's quite heavy, so it's difficult to push her around. She's just relentless.
She knows what she's doing with that weapon. She trains really hard with it, and she can put a lot of power into the shots.
In the final, Sophie faced Polish contender Kamila Henkelmann. The winner would be the fighter who landed the highest number of hits during 3 one-minute rounds. But it wouldn't go the distance. It was all over in 45 seconds. Sophie claiming the world title after dislocating her opponent's shoulder.
Victory! New Zealand!
I won! So from last year 3rd place to this year 1st place.
How did you beat her?
It's generally a combination of sort of 1-2 to the side of the head, and that really upsets the other person because you're getting knocked left and right.
The injury sustained by her Polish opponent is fairly common. Whilst the armour protects fighters from amputation or blunt force trauma, this is a dangerous contact sport and accidents do happen.
Probably the worst injury I've seen is a sword go through an eye slot.
I've got concussed quite severely a few months ago. Some guy was hitting me around the head with a huge hammer.
As well as, broken arms, broken legs. The mass battles, they basically carry one person off every round.
Someone,
anyone? Not me.
The concept of an elite medieval combat team was Justin's, but he knew the cost of the armour would limit his pool of fighters. A suit can cost between $3,000 and $10,000.
This is an expensive sport.
Yeah, if you're not prepared to pay for a racing car, you
You don't race.
don't race.
But Justin has a plan. He decided to build everyone's armour for free in exchange for a 4-year commitment to the team.
It's huge. I mean, it's like $5,000 for a suit of armour, so there's no way I would have actually realistically been able to do it without being sponsored by Justin.
Where we are at life, it's about making the sacrifices, and it's about living a little bit rougher than we'd like, but we end up with what we want. We've got the Viking face up there, so that one there's a Viking helmet from the 10th century.
The International Medieval Combat Federation has dictated armour must be authentic to between the 13th and 15th century. The team chose the year 1432, and even the smallest of details matter, right down to using shoelaces to secure clothing as opposed to zips or Velcro.
I got the nickname Bulldozer while I was over there because I just sort of put my head down and we'd plough through them.
And not surprisingly, the equipment is hot and heavy. A suit of armour can weigh up to 40 kilograms.
It is so tight.
Make it pretty.
Oh my goodness. I can't hear anything, my neck hurts.
Every time they fight, their armour takes a hit, and Justin must repair the dents and flaws before their next training. Every piece is fine-tuned for agility and safety.
Trust me, hair and chain are the worst pain.
Well done. All right.
The 30-year-old is entirely self-taught.
For me, a lot of people say, oh, I can't go out and get a job. I find that rubbish. If you look around here, you see all the tools. That's all been paid for or made by myself over the last 8 years. I started with a $5 hammer and a $15 angle grinder.
How profitable is this?
It's really not. I make about $4 an hour for the hours I put in. But as a business point of view, it's a complete shambles and a waste of time.
It is their life. Everything else is just so they can do this.
We both turned our hobby into an obsession, and so it's sort of taken over our lives, but in a good way.